Thank you for joining. We're having people trickle in, but I'm going to get started to make sure that we give the session enough time to provide you with content and to make sure that we have enough time for questions following. I think you'll really enjoy this session that Dennis has put together for us. We're very thankful that he's giving us some time today. As we get started, I just wanted to welcome everybody. I wanted to make sure that you understood that we were thankful that you were able to give us this time, and we wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to learn a little bit more about customer-centric innovation, which Dennis is going to be sharing with the team. So welcome. Before we get going in terms of the content of the session, what I wanted to make sure you were aware of was that today's session is brought to you by Zero In Consultancy, by 50,000 Foot, and by the Skill Ranch podcast. And I'll share a little bit more information about each of these as we go through the presentation. Before we get into the session itself, just want to cover a little bit of logistics for everybody. To make sure that everything goes smoothly today, I ask that you shut your video off so that bandwidths work properly and you can hear Dennis during his presentation. And I'd ask that you keep your session on mute so that there's no interruptions or any sound coming through as we're presenting. There will be an opportunity for questions, numerous questions throughout the presentation. There'll be a poll question that will be provided. And if you have any answers or any questions for Dennis, you'll be able to enter them into the chat forum. If you enter them into the chat forum, I, as the moderator, will be able to share those with Dennis and make sure that all your questions are answered in a timely manner. If you need more information from the content that is presented today, you will see details at the end of this deck that'll provide you contact information for all the participants and organizations supporting today's session. So without further ado, I would like to take this time to introduce you to Dennis. Dennis Geelen is the founder and principal consultant at Zero In Consultancy, with 20+ years of experience working and helping companies in various industries grow and prosper. Dennis brings a strong background of consulting in strategic planning, innovation, customer experience, and he's very passionate about helping companies and helping them grow and understand how to sustain their business long term. He's the author of 2 books and the creator of the Zero In Innovation board game. And Mr. Geelen enjoys helping companies disrupt their industries through customer-centric innovation, which will be the topic of today's discussion. He has a number of interests outside of work, from volunteering to sports to supporting his community. And we're really happy to pass this presentation over to Dennis and allow him to introduce you to Zero In Consultancy and the idea of customer-centric innovation. So Dennis, I'm going to pass this over to you and allow you to introduce yourself to the community.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Trevor, and so happy to be here today. Yeah, and like Trevor mentioned, the topic today is really about customer-centric innovation. And for me, I have come to believe over 20+ years of working in several different industries that this should be the foundation of any business, any team. No matter what sector, what industry you're in, no matter what size, if you take a look back at the most successful long-term businesses throughout history, you will see they have these things in common. And this is the topic of my latest book that's coming out shortly, called The Zero In Formula. So this is really a sneak peek today for everybody about what is this formula and why is it so important. As Trevor mentioned, I'm the founder of Zero In. It's a consulting agency, and really the mission there is to help as many businesses as possible be more customer-centric and innovative. A translation there would be creating lifelong loyal customers, right? That's really what it means to be customer-centric. And on the innovation side, it's creating that culture where everybody in your business is constantly looking to find new and better ways to add value. And these are buzzwords that get thrown around a lot. But if you cut down to the heart of what they really mean, extremely important. And that's what we're going to talk through today. So really, I have split this presentation today into two major pieces. We're going to talk probably the first half about what and why. What is customer-centric innovation and why is it so important? And then the second half, we're going to dig into how do you do this? What does it really look like? How do you apply these things within your business? So we'll start off with the what and the why. And what we have here are some stats. And these might be familiar to some of you. For some of you, it might be a bit of a shock. But the first one there is 20%. And what that's representing is new businesses. And the stats show us over time, over and over, we keep seeing the same trend. 20% of new businesses fail to make it past the first year or two. That's staggering. There's new businesses starting up all the time, and it's easier to start a new business nowadays than it ever has been with the internet and the access to people all over the world, and yet there's such a high failure rate. And yet you go to the 5-year mark, 45% of new businesses fail to make it that far. That's almost half of every new business fails to last 5 years. What about the next step, 10 years? 65% of businesses fail. Startups are all around us, yet starting up is not, hopefully, the goal. It's to have a long-term successful business, yet 65% fail to get there. You look at the 15-year mark, right? Only 25% of businesses make it that far. 25. 1 out of every 4 new businesses that start up will make it to the 15-year mark. And even the ones that do make it that far, a lot of them have either plateaued or are in decline. You reverse that number and look at it from another perspective, 75% is the number we're looking at here. 75% of every new business will not make it to the 15-year mark. That's incredible. So in the startup culture that we have, in this venture capital world that we now live in, 3 out of every 4 businesses are not ultimately successful long term. So for me as a consultant, that bothers me. Why is that? And how can I help businesses be more successful? So what I want to show today is what I believe is a foundation that will help any business buck those trends. You don't want to be in that 25, that 45, that 65, or that 75%. You want to be setting your business up for long-term success. And how do you do that? So what I'm going to do is break this down into 2 different ways of showing this to you. The first thing is all about what should your business be focusing on. And I believe there's 3 main pillars every business needs to do well. And then what are those pillars consisting of? And we're going to talk through that. So to start off, first we got a poll here for everybody, just to kind of get everybody in the right mindset. How many people on the call or the webinar today like to play or watch sports? And then the other question is, how many of you like to play or listen to music? So I believe a poll is going out. If you can just click on that. This might seem a little odd at first, but it'll make sense in a second as to why we're posting these questions. So take a second to fill that out. Okay, so there we've got the poll results. 78% of people like sports and 100% of people like music. So what we're basically saying is what we're about to go through here in the next few slides, everybody should be able to relate to, because I've got 2 different metaphors we're going to be walking through to explain what do I believe are the top 3 things every business needs to do well. Okay, so if we move on to the next slide, we're going to start with our sports analogy. So the first thing we have here is the idea of highly skilled athletes. If you were to start a new sports team today in any sport, you're going to want to try and get very highly skilled athletes on your team, whether that's basketball, baseball, soccer, whatever. Of course, you're going to want highly trained, highly skilled athletes, people that are dedicated to their craft, people that put the time in to hone their skills and get better at their skills, have the proper nutrition, have the proper training. That's what you're looking for in the athletes that are going to be on your team. However, if that's all you focus on, is that really setting your sports team up for success? If you have a group of highly skilled individuals only, you're probably not going to be successful. As this slide shows, you need those people to play together properly. You need good team collaboration, right? So in the sports world, that looks like, you know, people that learn how to pass properly and execute the plays properly that the coaching staff puts out for them. It's strategies and it's teamwork and it's working together. Purely highly skilled athletics alone is not going to guarantee that you are a winning sports team. You have to be able to play together. Now, hold on a second. If you have a sports team full of highly skilled athletes that know how to play together, again, are you ultimately guaranteed to be set up for success? Well, you might think so, but let me put it this way. What if you have a basketball team full of highly trained athletes, look after their body, are highly skilled, the coaching staff puts great plays in place, they practice those for 6 months, and at the end of those 6 months, that basketball team decides to enter into a baseball tournament. Is that basketball team going to be successful in that baseball tournament? Probably not. They haven't been practicing baseball. The purpose and direction for that team was wrong. Highly skilled athletes working well together, but they're in the wrong sport, right? Even if you have the same sport. If we go to the next slide, there's an example here from rowing. What if you have highly trained athletes that, look after their bodies, they can row as fast as possible, they're in sync, but the boat is pointing in the wrong direction? They're not going to be successful. They're not going to win the race. So we got highly skilled athletes, we got team collaboration, we got purpose and direction. You need all three of those things together in order to have a winning formula. So let's park that for a second. That's looking at it from a sports analogy. Now let's look at it from that music analogy. 100% of the people on the poll here said they enjoy music, either playing music or listening to it. So you should be able to relate to this. Very similar analogy here though. If you were to start a new band, of course, you're going to want highly trained musicians in your band, right? You want a highly skilled saxophone player, a highly skilled drummer, a highly skilled guitarist, a highly skilled singer. If you want your band to be highly successful, you're going to want highly talented musicians in that. You want them practicing their craft. You want them to get to be one of the best at their craft and sound really good as individuals in order to have a great band. But just like the sports team analogy, those individuals alone are not going to make a great band, right? The musicians need to learn how to play together. They have to be in harmony. They have to be in sync. They have to understand, when do I come into the song? What's my part and how do I do that so it sounds good? How do we make sure the frequency and the pitch is all? So again, it's that strategy, it's that team collaboration, it's that lot of practice, learning how to work together. Okay, so does that make a highly successful band? Well, let me put it to you this way. What if you've got that group of highly talented musicians that practice and learn how to play together and everything sounds great, and you hire them to come and be the band at your wedding? They show up and the only thing they know how to play is funeral music. Would you consider that a highly successful band for your wedding? Probably not. The purpose and direction was all wrong. Their purpose was to learn how to play funeral music, and yet here they are hired to play at a wedding. So what we've got here, again, are three main factors, whether it's a sports team or a music band: highly skilled individuals, team collaboration, and purpose and direction. So if you look at that from a business point of view, exactly the same. Highly skilled employees, learning how to work together in a proper purpose and direction, but we need to reverse that order, right? At the top, purpose and direction has to come first. You have to have the right purpose and direction, otherwise you're going to have the wrong team collaboration going on, the wrong strategies, the wrong tools for the purpose and direction you're going in. And the individual skills and behaviors of the employees you hire at that point will now fit in properly into the system that you've got. If you reverse the order and you just focus on hiring great employees, they're going to become frustrated. They're going to become demoralized because you don't have the right systems in place, or your company doesn't seem to be going in the right direction. So there's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of consultants that will, talk about, well, you just need good team collaboration. Sure, if you've got the right purpose and direction in place, if you've got the right strategies. Well, if you just hire the right people and smart people, they'll tell you what to do. Not necessarily right. Not if you don't have a good purpose and direction and not good team collaboration. There's an order of operations here, and this is very basic for any business, any team. This needs to be your order of operations. If you're not doing it in this order, it's going to get out of sync, and you're setting yourself up not for success, right? For failure. So when we look at those stats at the beginning, the 20%, the 45%, the 65, the 75, this is where a lot of businesses go wrong. This very basic foundation, this order of operations, is not being followed. So that's point number one. What are the main three pillars of every business or team that they need to do well? And what's the order of operations? The second point that my book, The Formula, goes into is, okay, what should these things be founded on? So now if we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk to you about why I believe the purpose and direction, the team collaboration, and the individual skills and behaviors should all be founded on the two main methodologies of being as customer-centric and innovative as possible in order to set your business, your team up for success. So on this slide here, what we have is a quadrant. And if you look at it on the horizontal axis, we have how customer-centric is your business or team. So on the far left, very low on the customer-centric side. On the far right, very highly customer-centric company, business, team, organization, whatever. On the vertical axis, it's how innovative is your business or team. So at the bottom, not very innovative at all. At the top, very innovative. So you can break this into now 4 quadrants. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk through each of these quadrants, and hopefully it'll become clear to you why being a great combination of both customer-centric and innovative is so important. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to first focus on that quadrant in the top left. I call this IFSI, and it stands for Innovation for the Sake of Innovation. If you think about it, what we have here is a company that's highly innovative, not customer-centric. That's not a great combination to have. What that means is you have a company that's coming up with cool, neat, creative things, but they're not customer-centric. So are they building cool, neat, creative things that people need? Are they understanding the wants, the frustrations, the gaps of their customers? Do they understand their customer segment? Are they treating these people? No, they're not customer-centric at all. So they are building things that they like, that the company likes, right? This is what I want to build. I find this cool. I find this neat. I find this innovative. And you'll see a lot of self-help books that encourage this. If you just do what you like to do, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, what if what you do isn't solving a problem for anybody? What if what you do doesn't resonate with any customers? To me, that's not great advice. It's only one half of a very important equation, right? So that's why I call that innovation for the sake of innovation. If we go to the next slide, this is a representation of what a growth chart or a success chart might look like for a company in this quadrant. They might get lucky, right? If you look at the solid line here, maybe they hit something where, wow, people see that as cool. It's a fad, right? Well, this is the neatest new thing. It's not really adding value. It's not really solving big problems, but maybe they struck it lucky in the beginning. A bunch of people bought this gadget, this thing that they're selling, but quickly over time, people realize I don't really need that. When this one breaks down or when I lose it, I'm not going to buy another one. It was just the coolest new fad, and then they taper off. What you'll see in that type of environment is very frustrated employees, right? Hey, I'm getting to work on something really cool, but the business doesn't seem to be going anywhere. We're not really making any money. We're not really ahead of our competitors because they're way more customer centric than we are. Maybe this company gets lucky a few times. If you look at the dotted line, okay, maybe a couple of times they come up with some ideas that kind of hit it off. This is not a recipe for success though. These are those companies that are landing in that 25, 45, 65% because they don't have a winning formula over time. They're relying on luck, and they're relying on just working on my own passion in order to have a successful company. That is not a recipe for success. Okay, so that's that top left quadrant, innovation for the sake of innovation. We just have a quick question here for the audience around what companies have you seen, or what products have you seen that would land in that innovation for the sake of innovation quadrant? If you have any thoughts, any examples of businesses or products that you've seen over time that, or yeah, that was cool, that was a fad, but not really something that lasts.
Dennis, Chris Anstead said pet rocks.
Yeah, that's a great example actually. That's back in the 80s, that was a thing. You don't hear about that anymore because it's just a fad. It's just something that was kind of neat or cool. Companies probably cashed in on it for a year or two. Not a long-term successful strategy though. Any other examples? I've got lots, but I'd like to hear what some different people on the call have to say. Think fads. Think things that came and went, and it's like, why did I buy that? What was the purpose of that in the first place? So some other examples could be things like slap bracelets, fidget spinners. Even if you look on like the App Store, how many different apps are out there that really are useless? It's cool, it's innovative to develop an app, but if it's not really solving a problem for anybody, are you really going to make money off that long term? So unfortunately, a lot of businesses go down this path. I'll just do what I like and I'll be successful. No, not necessarily. Okay, so let's move on. And if we look at the bottom right corner, this is the other half of the equation only. Now you're looking at a business or a team or an organization that is highly customer centric, but not innovative, right? So these types of companies are the ones that, you know, they have great customer service, and that's why I call this the CS quadrant. They understand their customers, they're pleasant, they know them by name, they understand their wants, their needs, their habits, but there's nothing innovative about what they're doing. Now, this one here, unfortunately, I find a great majority of businesses fall into this category because it works for a while. And depending on what industry you're in, that while could be 5 years, could be 15 years. And this is why I said off the top, a lot of those companies that make it to the 15-year mark, they find themselves, they've plateaued or are on their way down. And typically it's these businesses or teams or organizations that are in this quadrant. They've lulled themselves into believing that everything's fine. They've become complacent because our customers love us and we provide good service to them. But here's the problem. If you're not finding new and innovative and creative ways to better serve your customers, you can bet somebody else will. It might not be today, it might not be next year, but eventually somebody else is going to find new, better, innovative ways to solve the problem that you're solving for your customers, and your customers will leave. They will only be loyal for so long. It's a myth that once you've got that sticky customer that they'll stay with you for life. Not if somebody finds a much better way of solving their problems, right? That's a myth. So if we go on to the next slide, what does this growth chart looks like. So as I said, over time, they plateau. And if you look at your business, your company's growth chart, and you're seeing this line that's plateaued for quite a while, you probably need to ask yourself, uh-oh, am I in that CS quadrant? I need to find something new, something better, a different way. And that's not even the only reason. I mean, think about your competitors. How are you different from your competitors? I ask this question to a lot of different businesses that end up being my clients. One of the first questions is, what differentiates you from your competitors? Why would a client or a customer or a patient, whatever, go to you instead of the other business down the street? And a lot of times I'll get the answer of, well, we have highly, qualified employees that work here. Great. I'm sure the other businesses down the street will say the same thing. Well, we treat our customers really well. Okay, so does the other business down the street. What's different? What's unique? What's better? How are you solving their problem better than your competitors? And if you can't think of an answer, you're probably in this quadrant. And it's a dangerous place to be for those two reasons. One, it lulls you into this complacency where you think, hey, we're successful, we made it here, and we've been able to sustain that. But somebody else will find a better way to serve those customers. So same question as the last time. What different businesses or companies have you seen that land in that CS quadrant? This one should be a little easier. There's tons that you can think of that land in this customer service quadrant. Any thoughts on that?
Chris again said hotels before Airbnb.
Yeah, great example.
Bilal highlighted fast food restaurants as places that may be experiencing this. Salons have come up.
Yeah, great. If you look at any industry, what you can probably find over time is that there was a company leading that industry at one point, and they aren't anymore. And the reason is probably because they lulled themselves into this complacency of, hey, we're the big boys. We have got this. The customers love us. We've got our secret recipe, and we're going to stick to it, right? What's the problem with employees in those types of environments? I do a lot of work with businesses on change management. You want to know who my biggest customers are? The ones in that quadrant. They believe they've got the recipe. This is how we do it. This is how we've always done it. It's always worked this way in the past, right? What you create is a change-averse culture, right? And they lull themselves in the complacency of thinking, well, why should we change? Look at everything's been good for the last 5-10 years, right? They don't understand we are ripe for disruption. So lots of problems with being in this quadrant. Another couple of great examples here. If you look at the retail industry, look at Sears. Where were they 10 years ago? Where are they now? Look at the home entertainment industry. Look at Blockbuster. Where were they 10 years ago? Where are they now? Right? They were in that quadrant. Now they don't exist. So very dangerous quadrant to be in for several reasons. Okay, if we move on and start looking at some of the other quadrants here, you go to the bottom left. So now you've got a real dangerous recipe of I'm neither a customer-centric business nor am I innovative. And I call this one FB because, well, what are you? You're flying blind, really, right? And if you go back to those stats off the top, these are the ones that make up that first 25%. They don't even make it past the first year or two, right? They're flying blind. Why did you start the company in the first place? It wasn't to solve a problem for somebody because you're not customer-centric. You're not understanding your customers. You're not trying to solve a problem for them. You're not innovative, so you're not finding new and better ways to serve them other than the competitors out there. You probably started your business for completely egocentric reasons. I want to have my own startup. I want to have entrepreneur beside my name. I want to become rich and famous. If that's your motivation, you're not going to be successful. Your company needs to be built on a combination of being customer-centric and innovative to last the long term. And so many new businesses are not understanding that and missing that mark. again, if we look at the growth chart or the success chart for a company in here, nothing. They probably barely even get off the ground. They may see some family and friends buying some of their products and services or something, but over time, they're not seeing any really sustainable long-term success. For that reason, I also like to call this quadrant FB flat broke, right? It can stand for flying blind because you have no idea what you're doing and why you're starting up. And as a result, you're flat broke. So FB, a terrible place to be, but we still see the sad stats. 1 out of every 4 businesses ends up becoming flat broke because they're flying blind. So again, another poll question. Any examples you can think of here of companies that never really even got off the ground? They were just completely flying blind.
Well, before the questions come in, Dennis, I think as a platform that works with consultants, I think everybody working in the consultant world can say that they've met an individual who's gone into consulting probably for the wrong reasons and know that they don't make it long term. Definitely from a consulting perspective, we've seen that. Paul shared with us Me Too energy drinks, Chris Anstead, celebrity wineries. Napster came up.
Yeah,
Napster.
So what we find here is a lot of fly by night, never really got off the ground type thing. I have to admit, when I first started Zero In, I would say I was in this quadrant. I was flying blind. I was neither customer centric nor innovative, and yet that's what I do. That's my background, but I wasn't even applying it to my own business. My story there of how I recognize that and how I turn that all around is in my upcoming book, so I won't bore everybody with those details today. But I luckily recognized it and was able to get myself on a trajectory to be in that CCI quadrant, and Zero In has made a huge change, a huge pivot because of that realization a few years back. So this one here, when I asked this question, there was actually a few answers today. A lot of times there's no answer. People have a hard time thinking. And that's an answer right there in itself. You can't even think of companies because they never made it, right? They never even made a name for themselves because they were come and gone so quickly. You don't want to be in that quadrant. Nobody will know you and nobody will remember you. So what does that leave? That leaves the top right quadrant, and I call this the CCI quadrant. This is where you have a healthy combination of being both customer-centric and innovative. This is CCI. So this is we know our customers, we understand our customers, we put a lot of time, effort, and strategy into making sure we constantly are knowing more about our customers, and we're innovative. We don't just accidentally come up with some good ideas every once in a while and put them in. We intentionally come up with new ideas. We have practices, we have principles, and we have a culture of innovation that ensures we are constantly finding new and better ways to serve our customers. They might be small ideas, they might be big ideas, but we are getting better and better at being innovative every year. When you combine those two things together, you're now in that top right quadrant. Now, you could be in different parts within that quadrant, right? I've worked with some companies where they might just be entering into the CCI quadrant. It's good, but let's keep moving our trajectory so we're moving higher and higher. Let's get more customer-centric and more innovative. Again, you don't want to be complacent and risk falling back down into one of those other quadrants. So if we look at the next slide, again, this one, what's the success over time of a company in the customer-centric innovative quadrant? You're going to see dips, you're going to see ups and downs, but because they understand their customers and because they're innovative, they're not a change-averse culture. They're a culture of, hey, let's find a new way to do this. Let's find a way to compete with our competitors. Let's get in front of this. What you're going to see is it does trend upward over time. No complacency curves, no big long dips down, always slowly trending up to the right. I think we had some questions or comments coming in there.
It was actually previously for the flying blind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bilal introduced coaches and trainers, and Roxana was just clarifying. that
Yeah.
he meant that for flying.
It is a good point, though. I myself am a consultant. I'm sure there's other consultants and coaches and trainers on the call today. And you got to stop and ask yourself, where am I? What am I building my practice on? Is it on a principle of being customer focused, customer centric, and innovative? Is it only one of those two, or is it neither? And I think you'll find a lot of people self-admittedly when they start are neither. It's more of an egocentric, I want to do this because I enjoy it type reason. And that's not a good recipe for long-term success. So it is a good point. Thanks for pointing that out. So same kind of question then as the previous quadrants. What businesses do you believe historically over time could say land in that CCI quadrant? And again, this one, really, you just got to look back through history. Who have been those long-term successful companies? And if you dig down deep, you'll probably find, yeah, they've got a great, healthy combination of being customer-centric and innovative. Any specific examples?
Yeah, this is Brandon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was going to select Intel, having worked there for 3 years, several years ago. But as a company, they really, really push for customer support as well, customer excellence, as well as being innovative. Even in a market that's very challenged right now in the PC industry, I still believe you're always going to have a desktop computer or laptop. No, you can't do everything off your phone for business. And so I think they will continue to be a major player. Probably not as big as they were 15 years ago, but the industry can change on a dime. But I still see them continuing to be successful.
Right. And they might be one of those companies where maybe they're in that little bit of a dip right now, but because they have that foundation of being both customer centric and innovative, they position themselves to be able to rebound and come back because they've got that culture, they've got that mindset, they've got that foundation. So a lot of great,
exactly so.
Yes, a lot of great examples coming in. We got McDonald's, we got Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Disney, WestJet, Princess Cruises, GM, Starbucks, Virgin, Netflix. A lot of great examples here. Some of them have been around for a long time and they have proven, yes, we are long-term successful because we have built our foundation on that. Some of them are a little bit newer. Netflix, for an example, a little bit of a newer company. Yes, they've disrupted the industry. Can they sustain that? Are they truly built on being as customer-centric and innovative as possible? The next 10 years will probably tell that, but so far it looks like a very good start for Netflix. So easy to spot these companies, right? They understand their customers and they're very innovative. So, like I said off the top, I was going to spend quite a bit of time talking about the what and the why. That's what we just kind of went through there. What is customer-centric and innovative? Why is it so important? What I do as a consultant is I put those together and I design strategies for how do you get your business there. And my book called The Zero In Formula introduces what you see right here on the screen and goes through in detail several different strategies and tools that you can use to ensure that the purpose and direction, the team collaboration, and the individual skills that you are building your business around are built on both being customer-centric and innovative. So what I want to do now is spend some time going through this formula with you. We'll see how much time permits and where we want to go in deeper and so on. But I want to kind of walk through each step of the formula here and what does that really look like? Because I still find a lot of businesses throw around customer-centric and innovation as buzzwords. And when I dig down with them, is this really embedded in your purpose and direction? Do you really have team collaboration around these things? And are you really hiring for people to fill those roles? What I'm finding is it's a lot more fluff than it is substance. So to help cut through those buzzwords, I want to walk through with you today what I believe it takes to be truly customer-centric and innovative at each step of those three pillars. Okay, I think we had a few more questions or comments coming in. Just want to check that. Just some stuff about Netflix and yep. Okay, so what I want to do is spend some time walking through this. I will allow you guys to kind of dictate where do we go with this? Where do we spend a little more time than others? Where's their interest? I'll start walking through and let's see what kind of questions come up. and we can dive in more detail in certain areas. So if we take a look from the top down, because like I mentioned, purpose and direction is first. You have to be good at your purpose and direction. It doesn't make any sense to have good team collaboration in place if you're not going in the same direction, right? So if you look at purpose and direction, what does that mean from a customer-centric and innovative point of view? So what I like to do when I'm working with businesses is really look at their mission, their vision, their values, and look at the mindset from the top of the business down. What is it built on? And does it need to be more customer-centric and innovative? So when we're looking at customer-centric purpose and direction, what I really like to call that is you're outward focused. So let's take a look at your vision statement, your mission statement. Let's take a look at your strategic goals, where you're going. What are they built around? Are they built around your customer and their wants and their needs and the value that you're adding for them? Or are they built around your products, your services, and goals that you have, around your own business? And a lot of businesses can easily fall into the trap of, let's have a lot of inward focused direction and goals and purpose here. So a couple things to help with this. What I like to advise a lot of the businesses I work with around is there's a saying I just repeat over and over again. Customers are not interested in your products and services. And that sentence right there blows a lot of people's minds. What they're interested in is what your products and services do for them. Think about that. They're not interested in your product or service. They're interested in what your product and service does for them. What does your product and service do for people? What value are you adding? What frustration are you removing, right? What job are they hiring your product and service to do? If you've read any of Clayton Christensen's work, you'd be familiar with his book, Competing Against Luck. And this is where he introduces a methodology or an exercise called jobs to be done. What he argues is people are not purchasing your product or service, they are hiring your product or service to do a job for them. So what you as a business owner, as a leader, really need to understand and build a culture around is, what job are we doing for people? I'll give you a good example here. A couple of different businesses I worked with in the last couple of years from different industries. One from the healthcare industry. This was a massage, physiotherapy, chiropractor practice, and all kinds of them around, right? All kinds of competition. When I sat down and talked with the leadership team there, it was around, well, we give massages, we do great physiotherapy. No, that's your product or service. What job are they buying that to be done for? And we did a great strategic planning session together where they completely redid their mission, their vision, and what they came up with was, we are here to radically remove barriers through genuine care. That statement says nothing about massage. It says nothing about physiotherapy. It says nothing about chiropractic. Those are just a means to an end. What we're here to do is remove physical barriers for people. And now that opens up, wow, how do we do that? We can do that in several different ways. It doesn't restrict ourselves to this. People aren't buying a massage, they're buying a better feeling back, right? You aren't buying a razor, you're buying a smooth chin, right? You're not buying a new suit, you're buying an image. So you really have to have, what are we here for? It has to be outward focused. That's the customer-centric side of your purpose and direction. And that has to be from the top down. On the innovative side of your purpose and direction, it's got to be about, we do not ever want to be complacent. We want to build a culture where we are constantly looking for new and better ways to add value, to get that job done, to solve that frustration for people. Now, this one you have to be a little bit careful, and there's a lot of leaders that would self-admittedly admit over time that they get too attracted to the shiny new object, right? Then you start falling into that innovation for the sake of innovation. You have to combine these two things together, being outward focused, and that's where our innovation comes from. It has to be driven from a need, from a problem that you're solving, but we're constantly looking for new ways to solve that. So I can go in and talk about that one much deeper, spend hours on purpose and direction. Before I move on, any specific questions about having a customer-centric and innovative purpose and direction? I'll just give people a chance to take themselves off mute and ask, or put something in the chat bar.
No, this is Brendan again. I like it a lot because to me, you're speaking to outcomes, if you will. What do they want for their outcome? And I've supported senior vice presidents who really, they want results. I mean, and you're really, your statement really resonates with me. They really didn't care about how old I was, if you will, or any of that stuff. I need the results, and this is the outcome I want. That's great. You got this company. Can you do this for me? Right. And I've run into that, which really resonates exactly what you're saying, by the way.
Yeah, I run into a lot of consultants that I talk to who will try and explain to me, here's the process I use, here's the strategy I use. And I'm thinking to myself, if that's how you're explaining it to your potential clients, they're not going to buy that. Nobody wants a strategy. They want, what are the results that that strategy gives me, right? What is the job that it's doing for me, right? How you do it sounds great, right? But I need results, as you said. That's a perfect way of putting it. Okay, so let's move down through the formula. So the next big major piece, once you have your purpose and direction in place and it's founded on being as customer-centric and innovative as possible, and that's from the top down, you've now got a great culture in place, you've got a good foundation. What we have now is that team collaboration part. And what I have listed out here are 4 different things that I consider to be critical to having good team collaboration that ensures that your purpose and direction is actually being executed. So on the customer-centric side, there's customer-centric tools and strategies that several different businesses have proven and have become very good at deploying. I'm going to walk you through a bunch of them, and we can dive into any of these deeper if you want, or we can just kind of talk through high level and continue on with the rest of the formula. But number 1 would be data. Almost every business has some form of data about their customers, right? Buying trends, what time of day, what time of the week, what time of the year do things seem to be spiking or not? What types of habits are people having? Is there certain products that they're buying more than others? Is there demographics that seem to be buying more of our products? How do they buy? What platforms do they buy on? This data is out there. And what I have found with a lot of the businesses I work with is they don't harness that nearly as much as they can and should. It tells you a ton. The problem on the other side of that equation is there's too many businesses that rely solely on this data. At the end of the day, it's one small piece of the puzzle. You cannot use the data to make all your decisions, but you need to rely on the data to help inform your decisions. Anybody have any thoughts there about types of data that's important when you're looking at your customers and their trends?
Hi, this is Yasmin. I work for government, and I do large-scale procurement. And
okay.
I'm using a mix of validation both from a quant and a qualitative perspective. So I work with the suppliers to get structure and code the information about the users, about the customers, of who's using the platforms, because I deal with software companies. And then what we do is I try to code the data to mimic as much of the hierarchy of the organization, so that, you know, we're going to be able to explain the usage based on like how the organization is structured, and then developing, you know, the quant data, and then looking at it from a lens from a decision maker or a buyer, and then going to customer validation, say, hey, we saw these patterns and trends based on what how you're using these pieces of software. Can you tell us more about what you're trying to do? Because you can't really understand fully what tasks they're performing until you talk to them, but you need the data to sort of solidify and real-time decision-making on it.
Yes.
Understanding.
Yep. Data can be very powerful if used properly.
But you can't just rely on just one aspect of data. You need both
Yes.
validation from the data as well as connecting the data to people.
Yes. Yep. So what I'll do is I'll quickly run through several other customer-centric tools and strategies that I believe have to go hand in hand with data. So here you're looking at trends, information, and data that tell you about buying habits, that tell you about what's resonating, what's not resonating. But you also need to understand who your customers are. So there's lots of great tools out there. I've got templates that I use when I'm working with businesses to help do customer journey maps, experience maps, customer personas, where you're really getting to understand who your customers are. Again, one small piece of the puzzle. I have found too many consultants or too many businesses that rely too heavily on that. Just because you've created a persona does not mean everybody that matches that persona automatically wants to buy your product or service. It's one piece of the puzzle. You now have to put that together with, as Clayton Christensen would say, the jobs to be done exercise. Why are they buying your product or service? What job are they hiring it to do, right? So now you put those three things together. What's the data trends that we're seeing? Who are our typical customers? I even work with businesses to help them calculate who's their more ideal customer. And I do this through a customer lifetime value calculations. And then why are they buying it? What job are they buying it to do? You put all those things together, and now you have great analysis to start doing some strategic planning around better understanding who your customers are, why they're buying it, and what trends you're seeing. You start to combine that now with other things like Net Promoter Score, surveys and forums, and then observing or even being a customer. Because the final piece of the puzzle is to be able to empathize with them. You need to be able to feel what they feel. What does it feel like to be one of our customers? Extremely important piece of the puzzle that often gets overlooked as well. And what I encourage businesses to do is to take time to observe their customers in different parts of the journey with them. What are they seeing about customers that are, in that pre-sales part? How are they acting? What are they saying? What are they feeling? Empathize with them. What does it look like to actually sit in your own waiting room? What does it look like to be a customer on your own website? What are you feeling? Can you even use your own product or service? If you can, that's the greatest thing you could do. What does it feel like to actually be a customer of your own product or service? What does that feel like? Now you combine all of that together and you can put together some good customer experience strategies, right? What do we want our customers to think, act, and feel and say about doing business with us? How do we design the atmosphere and the experience based on all this information we have? Because now we are extremely customer-centric. We have people whose jobs it is to collect and analyze this data. We've got people whose jobs it is to observe our customers. We've got people whose job it is to understand who our most important customers are. And now we've got people whose job it is to design the customer experience. How do you think Starbucks came up with the design, the atmosphere, the layout of their restaurants? It wasn't by accident. They wanted and were looking for a specific type of customer. And they know that that specific type of customer would be drawn to that specific type of store and pay for those specific types of coffees at that specific price. That was not an accident. That was because they were extremely customer-centric, did their homework, and designed it that way. So again, this is a huge, broad topic that we could go and spend another couple hours on. But in lieu of time, we'll move on quickly and just talk about the innovative side of team collaboration. So what
just before you move on, Dennis,
sure.
Everybody, I know we're getting close to the 2 o'clock. I invite everybody to stay. We're having such a great conversation. And Dennis, you're delivering such great content. I hope everybody can stay and continue the conversation with us.
Yeah, I'll move quickly through the rest so that we can have some time for questions at the end. And if anybody does have to drop off, that's fine too. Basically, what this side of the formula says is, let's design our business so that we have principles and practices in place where good ideas are not an accident. We are intentionally putting principles and practices in place to design new ideas. And this is something where I spend a lot of time with businesses doing workshops on things like design thinking, on the jobs to be done methodology, on putting principles and practices in place. I even have a board game that I play with them that helps them understand and learn the principles of innovation. What I want to just share quickly with you on the call today is 5 principles of innovation that I believe every business needs to implement in order to make sure ideas are not happening by luck. Okay, so the first one is understanding your customers. That was that whole left side of team collaboration. That is a huge part of innovation. If you skip past that, you're falling into that innovation for the sake of innovation exercise, right? So understand your customers. Next one, get good at questioning your assumptions and biases. Everybody comes with preconceived notions based on their history. You have to get really good as a team at questioning your own assumptions and biases. Again, this is not something that happens easy. I have spent a lot of time with different businesses to teach them skills in order to do that, but very integral to having good innovation practices. Number 3, make sure you have diversity and inclusion in your innovation brainstorming sessions. If you've got a bunch of the same type of people sitting around the table, guess what? You're going to come up with a bunch of the same types of ideas. You want people from different backgrounds, different parts of the company, different experience, different skill sets sitting around the table so that you come and look at the problem from different angles, and you're going to get better ideas because of that. Number 4 is what I like to call go small or not at all, right? There's that mantra out there, go big or go home. When it comes to innovation, no, it's be agile. Use prototypes and pilots, use minimum viable products, because what you want to do is just test, does this idea actually resonate with our customers? If you spend all kinds of time and money putting something together and then you get in front of your customers and the feedback says, we don't like that, you've wasted a bunch of time and money. So do it small, do it in increments, learn, test, learn, test. That's the last one there is get feedback and learn fast. So that's number 5. Your whole intention around innovation is to get feedback from your customer and learn, and then just keep reiterating. So when I'm working with businesses, I help them implement practices that help them go through and make sure those principles are instilled in their strategies or tools that they're using, their weekly meetings or whatever we want to implement in their business. So I'm not going to go through individual skills and behavior. What I have there is 5 different types of behaviors that I believe are required in great employees to help them really fit into a business and help their trajectory be even more customer-centric and innovative. The book goes into why these are important in a lot of detail and how you look for these and how you hire for these and how you motivate and incentivize these types of people, but a very important piece of the puzzle. So I'll wrap it up there on the formula. As you can see, it's quite extensive and there's quite a few pieces, but what I believe is every business has to start here, right? You hear a lot of stuff about pricing and marketing, and those are important, but not if you don't have your foundation in place, right? This is your foundation. Get yourself set up first, and then worry about your pricing or your marketing or your other different strategies, because none of it's going to matter if the customer comes to you and they find out your product or service is in one of those other quadrants. You're not setting yourself up for success. So we'll move on to the next slide. Basically, a lot of the customers I started working with in the beginning, it was, well, how do we know where we are? So I created an assessment tool. It's on the Zero In website, and you can see the link there, www.zeroin.ca. There's a self-assessment there where it asks you a bunch of different questions, and it will come back with a results score telling you how innovative and customer-centric you are in different areas and where you need to improve or where you're already doing well. So that's a great baseline assessment. Feel free to use it yourself, or you can refer any of your customers there so that you've got some good talking points. But that's a great place to start when you really want to have these kind of deep conversations with businesses or within your own team. Have your team members fill out the assessment and then agree collectively, geez, maybe we need to implement some better strategies or tools in some of these different areas. So that's free. There is a premium version of the assessment tool coming probably in the next couple of weeks that will allow you to get a lot more in-depth analysis, but the free version will always be there. And the book, as I mentioned, the Zero In Formula, is be launching September 14th. It goes into the entire formula in a lot more detail. There's stories, examples from my business, from a lot of the clients I've worked with, and a lot of different businesses around the world that I interviewed for the book. You'll find their story in there as well. Success stories, failures, and what they had to do to turn themselves around. So I'm pretty excited to get this one out. And like I said, it fits right in with my mission to help as many businesses be as customer-centric and innovative as possible. So hopefully the book allows a lot of leaders to guide their business in that direction.
Thank you, Dennis, for sharing that. We're going to just have a couple of quick comments, and then we'll open back up. We have a number of questions that are in the chat that we'll cover, Dennis, as we go through. Just want to cover quick information about some of the supporting organizations for today's presentation. The Skill Ranch podcast is a podcast that provides, sorry, just so you know, Skill Red podcast episode 14 has just been launched on the web. You can find it on the 50,000 Foot blog page. It's leveraging positive self-talk and mindset to achieve your dreams. The podcast focuses on the impacts that skills can have in helping you in tomorrow's work environment. And it's hosted by Bilal. Please join and listen to the episodes when you have some free time. Also brought to you by 50,000 Foot. 50,000 Foot is provide solutions to consultants and firms and helping them strengthen their business and take them to new heights. Just like Dennis said, we're passionate about making sure that we help consultants find their business and make it sustainable long-term through building strong client base, to helping their engagement, to growing revenues, supporting non-billable time, and creating great brand recognition. So please go to 50,000 Foot. It's www.50000foot.com. That's 50000foot.com. And you can learn more about what we can provide to consultants throughout North America. So if you need to contact any one of us in regards to our solutions or services, in regards to the content of today's session, I'll keep this slide up for you as we go through and answer some of the questions that arose within the chat while the session was going on. So let me just take a step back in the chat and let me just ask some of the questions as we go. Okay, so first there was a question from Paul. And the first question was, Paul, do you apply your innovation philosophy to internal customer-centric?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul, and thank you so much, because I have run into teams or businesses where it's mostly internal customers, and they immediately start to tune this out. Well, they think of the customer as, you know, somebody coming in off the street and paying, but really your customer is anybody that you're adding value to. So there's a lot of internal teams within large organizations that never deal with the external customer, but they are serving other teams within the company, like an IT department, or maybe a finance department, or an HR department, and so on. They have customers. It's a different customer than the salespeople are dealing with or the operations team are working with, but the same mindset and the same strategies and tools need to be put in place to say, how do we as that internal team make sure that we are being as customer-centric and innovative as possible so that we are setting ourselves up for long-term success? Because there's all kinds of stories as well about companies that have outsourced those departments because they find a better or cheaper or different way of doing it. And if you're the leader of one of those teams, extremely important that you're not letting that happen. You're putting your team into that top right quadrant. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a great question.
Yasmin had a question. Do you use your formula to validate with customers?
Yes, so that's what the CCI assessment was really designed to do. was when I was first working with a lot of customers around the formula and helping them implement. It's very abstract at first. So to help them really understand where are they at and have them assess themselves was a huge change in helping them understand how much they need this and what they need to do and help them put a plan in place. So the CCI assessment really does help them validate, where are we? Are we in this quadrant? Are we in this quadrant? Maybe we're in the CCI quadrant, but we still have some work to do. So that validation has been huge. And that was a big piece for me, getting that out there to my clients.
And Yasmin had a follow-up question, Dennis. Can you share some high level on your calculations?
Calculations for?
I can speak up here. I think you answered part of that question because you were talking about surveys and NPS scoring, but
Yep.
I was wondering if you had any calculations based on your formula or anything. It's kind of quant heavy, but I'm not sure, so I thought I'd ask.
Right. No, what I've done is I've worked with other tools that do this for clients, like the surveys and forums and reviews and so on, to help create an NPS score. I have to say, I'm not 100% confident that there is a tool out there or a strategy out there that gives something that is a very accurate representation of how much a customer is loyal to a business. I think there's, you know, a sense with any of these types of tools or scores of, you know, subjectivity. So I don't like to promote any particular tool or score too much, because I think all of them have different flaws. I think if you focus more on your strategy and your goals and your mission, those different tools can help, but don't rely on them too heavily.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. And, you know, a lot of this is contextual and based on the culture of the clients that you're serving to.
Yes.
Dennis, we have a question from Chris. Can a company move directly from FB to CCI, or do they need to move into one of the other quadrants first?
If you're in the FB quadrant, I would suggest, yes, you try and implement strategies to be more customer-centric and innovative at the same time. Because all you're really going to be doing is shuffling a problem to another area that you're soon going to have to address anyway. So really, you should be looking at, how do we be more customer-centric and innovative? And that should be a constant question that you're always asking yourself, and never get complacent. How do we get more customer-centric and innovative? Through tools, through strategies, through people, whatever. It's always a journey. So great question, but yeah, I think both are needed.
Okay, next question came in. During the conversation, Dennis, you mentioned that initially in your consulting business, you were not in the CCI quadrant. What steps did you take as a consultant to come into the CCI quadrant?
Yeah, great question. I do go into this in a lot more detail in my book. So a short answer would be, I started my business with the entire intention of, I always wanted to do this. I did not have a great plan. I had no background in sales and marketing. I just thought, hey, I'll announce to the world that I'm a consultant. I'll build a website, and then I'll just sit back and wait for the clients to come rolling in. And I soon had to realize that is not how it works. That is not a recipe for success. And I had to start learning a lot about, who are my clients? What job would I be doing for them? How do I do it differently? And I had to start putting a lot of time and effort into building up that mindset, that purpose, and the material around being more customer-centric and innovative. So I would say for me, it was a mindset shift and a big lack of understanding in the beginning. I could go into a lot more detail, but it's a bit of a longer story than that.
So thank you, Dennis. Paul actually has a consultant-related question. So Dennis, are you looking to engage with the consulting community? And what is the CCI for independent consultants?
So typically my customers or clients have not been other consultants. I've worked with a wide range of businesses, from government to not-for-profit to health and wellness to recreation, HVAC, retail. I have not had a consulting client, but I would strongly suggest that these same principles do apply to consultants, because I had to do them myself. Will I work with a consulting company as a client? Sure, I would. Do they need help putting different strategies in place? Of course they do. Every business, though, is of a different size, is in a different place in their journey, and what you need to do in your business might be different. So the first thing I do is sit down and do an evaluation with a company, both the CCI assessment, and then I do an evaluation of, well, what are your goals and where do you want to go? And that's how we decide together, what do we need to implement to help you get on that path to CCI. Hope that answers your question, Paul.
Great. So is anybody else, I'll give just a few more seconds for questions, and then we can make sure that you have the information you need, which is on the screen right now. If you need to connect with Dennis, myself, or Bilal from the Skill Rants podcast.
Hi, I missed something in your chat about, you mentioned diversity of thought, going small or not at all, but what were the first two? I missed those two.
Okay, in the 5 principles of innovation, number 1 is understand your customers. If you're not starting with empathy and empathizing for what frustrations do they have, what needs do they have, what jobs are they looking to hire my product and service to do, then you're cutting off an entire first step of your innovation, and you're putting yourself in that IFSI category. So number 1 was understand your customers. Number 2 was question your assumptions and biases. This one is more of a soft skill, a psychological thing, but if you think about it, all of us have had a very different experience in our life that got us to where we are today, right? We've had experiences, we've had different backgrounds, different family life, different traumatic things that have happened to us, a different path to where we are today. And what that does is it shapes our assumptions and biases about the world. We see the world through a specific, unique lens. I see it through the lens of Dennis Geelen. So when you sit around a table with a bunch of people and you're looking at a business problem, you're going to be looking at it from a specific lens. If you get too many people around the table that are too similar, right? Similar background, age, ethnicity, skill sets, whatever, they're going to be looking at the problem through a very specific lens, and you may start putting a bunch of assumptions and biases on the table. Well, that will never work because we've tried that before, or that can't scale. Well, you have to get good at, as a team, as soon as somebody puts an assumption or a bias out there, you question it. Well, why wouldn't that work? Why didn't that work last time? What could we do differently this time to ensure we don't have that same problem? So it's a bit of a soft skill that the team has to learn to get good at. Otherwise, you could dismiss a problem or an idea too easily.
That was very helpful. I really enjoyed this talk. It's given me like a million questions that I'll try to keep it to myself for now.
I know I could talk innovation all day, so it's hard sometimes to condense it down to an hour, but I think we were able to get through it pretty good today.
Yes, it was. It was great, Dennis, and thank you so much for sharing that. Just a reminder again that Dennis's book is coming out, the Zero In Formula, and you can find it on Amazon. Please, as I will, make sure as soon as it gets out, you go out and buy it. I'm really looking forward to reading that and further. I've got so many questions.
Yeah, and I mentioned in there, subscribe to the Zero In mailing list, because I've had a lot of different people reach out to me about when is it available, where am I going to get it, how can I find out, and I try and keep my my community up to date by email, maybe once every week or two. I don't inundate people with spammy emails, but if you want to be up to date on anything about Zero In and what's going on, just go to the Zero In website, subscribe to the mailing list, and you'll make sure you don't miss out on anything.
And Dennis, just so you know, in the chat box, Amy, who had to leave, said, thank you, Dennis. It's been fantastic. And she really does appreciate your insight. So I think that echoes the rest of us in thanking you for sharing the upcoming content within your book. And it gives us a lot to think about in both our own business and how we can support the businesses as consultants that we work with on a day-to-day basis.
Excellent. Well, thanks for having me today. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your Wednesday. And if you need to connect with any member of us, Dennis, myself, or Bilal, please feel free. Have a great day.